The process of disintegration is visible both in the breakdown of individual morale and in the growing impotence of such institutions as the universities, the churches, the political parties, and the labor unions. For the individual, life in California is oriented toward leisure rather than toward work that has some meaning for its own sake. Marriage and the family are becoming increasingly insecure. There is a growing familiarity with death, either symbolic death with alcohol and other drugs, or vicarious death through employment in the garrison state, or literal death through suicide. The forces of darkness are breaking through the sunlit surface of California life, announcing their presence by means of such phenomena as the murderous history of the Charles Manson family and the brilliant and tragic career of Angela Davis. By the way, in Radio Free America program number 23 and Radio Free America 12, as well as the aforementioned miscellaneous two-part archive series about Satanism, mind control, and the U.S. national security establishment, we dealt with national security connections to both and fascist connections to the Manson family operation, and also dealt with the setting up of Angela Davis by elements of the criminal conspiracy section of the LAPD, according to Louis Tackard, one of its operatives and informants. Continuing. In the public sphere, the political parties have virtually disappeared as useful instruments of the process of government. The most powerful labor unions have become adjuncts of the garrison state. Among the churches, some have attempted to come to grips with the real problems of a largely unchurched population, but at the cost of fragmentation and institutional decay. The universities are on the brink of being destroyed, both by internal turmoil and by the eagerness of political leaders to profit by that turmoil. Political power in California has fallen into the hands of men who are not politicians in the customary sense, but who have no reluctance to extend their areas of control. They have made their essential orientation clear. It is anti-youth, anti-intellectual, anti-minority, anti-dissent, pro-police, pro-property rights. Their power is cresting. When I consider the future of California, I see a reconstruction of our collective life that will lead to internal harmony and order, but that will make California an impossible place in which to live. I see first the progressive atrophying of such political life as we now enjoy. Choice in the political sphere will become increasingly restricted. Whether the governor is Mr. Reagan or whether he is somebody else will not make much difference. The movement of California's political life will be toward preserving stability at all costs, ultimately at the cost of eroding the Bill of Rights. People will be imprisoned for political reasons, and cause will be found to keep them in prison. Privacy will be invaded to a degree unthinkable 20 years ago. Computerized dossiers will be maintained on all dissenters and potential dissenters. News will be managed, and thought will be controlled. Unless I am much mistaken, the rebellion on the campuses has about run its course. The love generation is certainly gone. The counterculture of the young will be remembered as a brilliant and threatening comet that will not be expected to return. The political ghosts of Mario Savio and Angela Davis will be invoked to legitimize the suppression of whatever mild rebellion raises its head. The next generation will be silent, clever, biddable. Skipping down. Given our national leadership and the state of the world generally, I do not see much chance that California will be required to plow under its missile factories and napalm plants. Instead, we will become increasingly dependent on war as our one-crop economy. The brightest of the new generation of young people will be enlisted in careers in the war industries. They will learn to go willingly. The relations between the races will worsen rather than become better. The more mobile, middle-class blacks will escape to join their white brethren in the suburbs. Los Angeles, Oakland, and San Francisco will become dumping grounds for semi-employable black no-hopers. When civil disturbances occur, they will be stamped out promptly, bringing to bear all the technology of repression that has been perfected to cope with the campus. When blacks and browns are gassed, clubbed, killed by gunfire, and arrested collectively, there will not be as much protest as there was when white students were the victims. Yet the blacks and the browns will manage to burn the cities and great areas that once housed people will be allowed to stand as monuments to death and destruction. We will welcome this new world, for we ourselves will have made it. We will insist that we are living in the realm of Eros, but the temple we will have built will be occupied by Thanatos. The rhetoric will remain that of the promised land, but the reality will be closer to George Orwell's nightmare. We will give away the truth by destroying ourselves literally and symbolically at an increasing rate. Alcohol will remain our principal anesthetic, but marijuana and the less virulent narcotics will be increasingly used in wider circles than they are now. Our madhouses will overflow. There will be an increasing number of suicides that will be hard to explain on any rational basis. And so, in the end, the land that Walt Whitman described as a flashing and golden pageant, and that Mark Twain called the crown princess of the new dispensation, will indeed become our first para-fascist state. As California has gone, so eventually will go the rest of the United States. That again was written in 1971, and it is ominously, hauntingly, eerily prophetic. As to how far this progression goes, well, that remains to be seen. That, in the end, will be up to members of the listening audience. If people want to remain passive, then the realities so ominously described and accurately described by, or predicted by, Charles Lamont, writing in 1971 in Anti-California, they will become realities. The proto-fascistic realities of Propositions 187 and 184 will lead eventually not to para-fascism but to fascism itself. The scapegoating of people of color, poor people, illegal immigrants for our problems created by affluent white people, will ultimately lead to the same sorts of tragic results that they had in Nazi Germany. And unfortunately, that is the reality which awaits those of us here in the United States. Recall that a couple of weeks back when I reread the passage from They Thought They Were Free, the college professor quoted by Michael Mayer said that one must resist the beginning, one must foresee the end in order to resist the beginnings. But how can one foresee the end? Well, we now have a lesson of history. We have seen the end, and we are in a position to resist the beginnings if we dare. Otherwise, I think a future economic collapse, and one is coming in my considered opinion. I don't know when it will happen. I don't know whether it will be precipitous, as it was in 1929, or gradual. I tend to think gradual. But as the economy tightens, the degree of scapegoating will increase. We will see increasing pressures to keep people who are, quote, undesirable out, or perhaps even to dispose of people who are deemed excess, be that people with AIDS, people on drugs, people who are horribly deformed, the handicapped, the mentally ill. I think the pressures to eventually eliminate those people who can no longer be supported by the infrastructure during an economic collapse will be great. They will grow. And bearing in mind the Nauer case in Germany, which was the legal opening for the Nazi extermination programs, I think we have to be very, very, very careful about the progressions of the international, the progressions of the mental hygiene, eugenics, and euthanasia movements here in the United States. Otherwise, we will be having Auschwitzes, Treblinkas, and Bergen-Belsens here in the United States, too, if that first legal door is allowed to open as it was in Nazi Germany. If it is, then those things will happen here in the United States, either, to make a pun, now or later, sooner or later, now or later, the Nauer case will become a reality here in the United States with all that implies.
My country, 'tis of thee, sure looks like Germany, 1933. Prepared for genocide, shrouded in foolish pride, from every mountainside, let freedom ring.